Hi, I'm Grant Bartley. The fact that the physical world behaves quantum mechanically has profound implications. Indeed, quantum mechanics provides a very different view of the nature of reality than most everyday assumptions about it. Instead, quantum mechanics describes the physical world in terms of laws for changes in how certain possible physical interactions may be observed. So what? So in this way, we can understand all of physical reality with reference to minds. Being a Christian, I want to interpret this metaphysical earthquake in Christian terms. Basic Christian, or indeed Abrahamic premises about God include the ideas that He is the all-powerful personal creator of everything, and that He knows everything too. I want to say that when it's claimed that God creates and sustains the universe by His will, as the immediate creative power of the mind, this must primarily mean He does so by His will directly, that is, as a direct application of deliberate, conscious creativity. Anything else, I think, would truncate God's role as the creator of the universe. So, what He consciously creates exists in His mind, and He consciously creates matter. Moreover, if He knows everything, this must be true about the physical world too, down to its finest detail. So, if you accept the basic Abrahamic understanding concerning God's omniscience and His creative omnipotence, the straightforward conclusion is that everything that exists primarily in the mind of God, and so is ultimately mental in its substance. It is, however, an interesting question what everything being in the mind of God turns out to imply, particularly for a quantum-type physical world. First, it means we're talking in terms of two-tier mind-constituted reality. God's contents and our contents. So we ought to talk about the experiential contents which together form the substance of the world for both finite mental and for physical aspects of the world. One aspect is the contents of finite, non-absolute minds, and the minds that go with these contents. Minds like mine, yours, or your pet cats, angels and demons, but also the direct contents of the mind of God that make up the real external reality, as well as there being God experiencing it all. So not only is there the distinct existence of the internal worlds of the contents of the finite minds of humans and other creatures, which of course is mental in nature because it's contents of mind. We must recognize the external physical world is actually also mental in its real nature, in terms, first, of existing in the mind of God from a subatomic level upwards. So let's consider the mental contents of the mind of God which I'm arguing external physical reality consists in. What is the nature of physical reality? Continued exchange of signals between matter quanta sets up fields of force through which the structure of physical reality is created. This quantum signaling evolution happens in relation to minds, since quantum mechanics, such as Schrödinger's wave equations, models the physical world in terms of the development of possible observations of physical reality. This means we already define physical reality in mental terms. Using a signal processing framework for understanding physical interactions at the most fundamental level means we can define physical reality in purely mental terms in another way too, as information processing. Specifically, I think of quantum information processing systems in operation. Matter interacting with signals from other matter can be seen as the processing of quantum information about states of matter. The signal conveys information about the surrounding physical environment or structure or behavior. Here, the fermions, such as protons or electrons, are nodes for processing the information which is carried in the quantum signals they receive or give out, and react to accordingly. We keep normal, everyday physical reality just because it emerges from these quantum information processes in the sort of complex manner the physical sciences have no doubt only just begun to trace out. The results of this process we then represent as our experience of physical reality. The physical world as we experience it to be really exists then. I'm adding that this information exchange perspective is how the ultimate substance of physical reality can be mental, not physical, since ultimately physical reality is quantum information exchange system being experienced and calculated in the mind of God. On top of that, there's our limited experiences too. As I say, I call this position a two-tier idealism, meaning that reality is ultimately mental contents in two completely different ways. The two tiers are finite and divine internal realities. First, we have God creating and comprehending the quantum information processes that make up the physical universe. The larger physical world emerges through the interaction of these processes in the way that physics says it does. One important thing our useful representation of physical reality means is that from looking at how reality appears to behave, we can know the real order of the causal interconnections in physical reality. The structure of physical reality remains what we observe, or if you prefer, what our experience models it as. This means the material world is ultimately mental in nature, in the mind of God, while still having all the physical characteristics our best scientific models observe the world to have. However, the nature of the stuff having the physical structure we represent the quantum interactions as creating is not experienced in our representation. But all finite sensory representations of the results of these processes are also real, right? Your experience is real. I would add that finite thoughts and other imaginings are also part of reality on this second tier. I believe the theologian Keith Ward has a similar two-tier view. This conclusion also bears some superficial similarities to some of the ideal bishop's views. The popular misinterpretation of Berkeley assumes that he thinks that objects only exist when they're being perceived by humans or other finite creatures. I don't think that at all, but neither did Berkeley. Berkeley knows that would make no sense. What would tie all the multiple experiences together in the orderly fashion the world presents itself in? So, Berkeley also relies on God perceiving everything. And this does yield an objectively existing external world, even if its substance is ultimately for it to be perceived by God or by us. To both me and the good bishop, the universe would still have existed even if no man, woman or beast had ever been alive to perceive it. However, there are crucial differences between Berkeley and Berkeley. As I understand him, Berkeley thought that God's experiences of the world were like our sensations of it, only infinitely more complex and much, much sharper. I don't think that at all about how God creatively experiences the world in the quantum way I've been talking about. In the current context, I take God's creative experience of the physical world to be nothing like our experience of it in our representation of it, but rather like whatever a direct experience of the quantum dynamics of subatomic physical quantum information exchange would be like, in a purely informational terms. We don't know what it's like for the quantum level physical universe to exist in the mind of God. Well, whatever this is physical reality known in the mind of God, and so ultimate physical reality. But even a materialist should recognize that we do not know the real inner nature of the matter or signal quantum wave particles, only their behavior. As a specifically Christian theist, for me, God creates the universe by speaking His word. Presently, this seems to me to mean God creating the physical world by expressing the quantum system by which the physical world is constructed. But one might ask, what is God's experience of the intricate, intimate physical universe as He's creating it through speaking His word? A difficult question for sure, but until we know the answer to it, we cannot know what the real nature of the physical world is in itself. So what is in the mind of God, which is the information processing system, which is the real quantum world, which activity provides the foundation for the physical reality we interact with? Whatever it is, this is what physical reality really is. The only comparison we have with God's experiences are our own experiences. Unfortunately, we have a very limited toolbox of experience with which to attempt to understand God's experience in creating the quantum universe. It's like climbing a mountain with a penknife. What does this make reality, though? How should we now understand it? First, there's God. God is a spirit, which specifically and definitionally means that He's a mind with a memory and character and a creative will. The term spirit means a being who consciously acts through an experiencing mind. That is to say, spirits make choices on the basis of what they experience, their characters, and their memories. We define minds as awarenesses with contents, and spirits are minds with wills and hearts, that is, memories and characters. This also makes them personal, by the way. There are also the finite minds in which finite experiences happen. Minds such as yours or mine, or the angels or the hedgehogs. Some of these minds are spirits, but probably not all, as not all animals have free will. Free will seems to require at least some degree of abstract thought in order for it to know itself as distinct from the contents of mind it must choose between. And I'm not convinced a mouse, for instance, could be said to have a useful degree of abstract thought. Next, there's quantum scale physical reality. I think about physical reality as a matrix of quantum information processing in the mind of God in the way we've just examined. And this matrix produces larger scale or emergent physical structure. This structure we represent in our everyday experience as the phenomenal physical world. Since our experiences of reality change in an ordered fashion, there must also be the laws or the causes of the laws by which the potential quantum states observed evolve. The laws of physics as well as the laws of logic. This world is ultimately information processing experience in the mind of God and mere possibilities otherwise. There are different possible worlds too in the mind of God, I believe, as well as He knows how many different actual worlds He creates beyond this one. We exist in one of the possible physical worlds, which actually means one of the internally coherent possible physical causal systems. Then we come along in our place in all that's physically possible, and certain patterns in the connections are realized through our brain states, having meaning in mental space as the experiences we have. But the brain quanta through whose activity information is encoded for your mind are themselves information processing nodes and signals in God's mind. So what's being processed, both in our minds and in the mind of God, in different ways, clearly, is the information properties of certain wave particles acting together in our brains. Among many things, this means that the contents of the human mind are continuous with the activity of the human brain and the rest of the physical world and other internal worlds, in the sense that all are mental in nature. It's all mental content to mental content. Your internal world is naturally metaphysically compatible with the external world. Take choice, for example. Here there's a continuous chain of mental cause and effect from the internal world of our mind to the objective, real, external physical world outside, from mind to brain, then all points beyond. All these points outside your mind have their reality in the mind of God, and in other minds too. We have the best reasons to believe there is a God. I think God has the imagination to imagine all possibilities from all possible perspectives. I wouldn't assume that he has imagined them all, just that he could. Among physical possibilities, our own quantum universe dwells. In this region of the multiverse of possibilities in the mind of God, these possibilities define our world in specifically quantum ways, making both the material world and the minds in it. Thanks.